All right, everyone, welcome back into another NBA props video. Gonna be touching on the top prop bets today on PrizePicks and Underdog. Let's go in and get into it. So let's go ahead and start out with the Portland Trail Blazers versus the Milwaukee Bucks. About a 13-point spread, so very much a game that's probably going to be a blowout. 230 for the over and under. Taking a peek at the injury report, we do have some stuff to monitor. Chris Middleton's out. Okay, we know that. Beasley is probably going to step up. Marjon Beauchamp probably going to get a little bit more minutes with Jamison Crowder still out. And we do see Giannis currently a game time decision. Now, he is probable, as is DeAndre Ayton, but Giannis, he could randomly sit, and then we're going to see that could actually lead to us being on some pretty good prop bets for Milwaukee. Then obviously I do want to call it Damian Lillard playing his former team. Maybe there's something there. Maybe that's a narrative that you guys like, and I'll touch on that in a second here. But looking at Portland, we know that DeAndre Ayton currently a game time decision. He is expected to play as well. And so what I find interesting is the spread here. Like if Giannis were to sit, you would hope that it'd be a little bit closer. But we take at the prop bets that we are currently getting right now. And I will say these first two, I don't know if I actually like for two reasons. One, if Giannis were to sit, I would be smashing the overs. The per 36 production goes through the roof with him off for Brook and Beasley as well. They get a bump in usage. And then Lillard as well. Like he would crush. Now, I do want to call it with Lillard here. He is going against his former team and, probably going to be a little bit motivated to play well against them, you would assume. Now, it didn't seem like a terrible situation. Like he wanted to go. They kind of let him go. Maybe the situation ran a little sour, but these narratives I like a little bit better when you got a player going back to his former team. And I think Aiden's actually a perfect example of that against Phoenix. He went back to his former team and just went off against them, played an away game for Portland. So home game for Phoenix. That is the type of narrative that I like. So I probably would be trusting Lillard a little bit more in this situation with that, but all in all, probably a little bit too thin. But yeah, looking at Brook, looking at Malik Beasley, I don't love those. And especially if Giannis were to sit, then they're probably going to get their overs. And like Brook just gets such an easy matchup against Portland. He has been such an extremely consistent fantasy producer as well. I just expect him to have a good game. Now, I'm sure the projection data is saying probably going to be a blowout. He's probably not going to get the 30 minutes that he has been getting. Even still, I see him having a good game. And so I struggle with that one. And then I also struggle with Beasley as well. Beasley is someone that is probably going to play at least 30 minutes in this game. With Chris Middleton out, you expect him to get a few more shot attempts up. He's been someone that can get some blocks, can get some steals. And so, I don't know. I'm probably going to do a slight game stack here. I'm probably just going to bet all three of these for the over, hoping that Giannis sit. And if he does, gain a huge edge. If he doesn't, kind of, oh well, decent chance to still get there. All in all, though, guys, probably should just stay away from, honestly, all three of these. Real quickly, we get into Phoenix as well. Looking at it. Not Phoenix, sorry. Portland. We have Sharp and Grant for over fantasy score as the two best. And I would say we can kind of call it part of the reason as to why Grant's fantasy score is probably favored for the over is simply because he's likely to get a steal in this game. That's part of it. Do want to call it Aiden project to get the under. And again, I don't know. I almost want to place a game stack bet here, hoping that Portland can keep it close enough for long enough. And I'll call out as to why they could be able to do that. It's the fact that they're just healthier. You got Malcolm Brogdon playing about 25 to 30 minutes or so. He has been someone that they haven't been getting blown out too quickly in a game to the point where players are at least getting their almost normal minutes. So like someone like Jeremy Grant could easily have a good game. Now I do worry that he's coming in off of a 5 for 6 3-ball night and a 5 for 8 3-ball night. He is due to probably have a poor night shooting now. Now I will say probably not drawing as much of a defensive attention, and you got Malcolm Brogdon probably getting him some easier buckets with that, a little bit more open looks. And then Sharp as well. We saw his over fantasy scores being favored. He is someone that I think with him not having to handle the basketball as much, we're not going to see as many turnovers for him, which is going to be the key for him to get the over fantasy score. Like he's going to get the minutes. He's going to get some shot attempts up as well. As long as he's not having the basketball in his hands too much, we're fine. And so I do think like Scoot Henderson even playing 20 minutes is going to be a bump for everyone. I think Malcolm Brogdon playing about 25 minutes is a bump for everyone. But like if this game stays close, I could easily see Aiden still having a pretty good game. And I don't know if I exactly want to go there, but all in all, I think we do have a game stack for this game. Like we could blindly bet the overs here. And I still think like Damian Lillard over probably Brook Lopez and Beasley over as well, and just hope the game stays close enough for long enough. And then you could actually bet the opposite, hoping that the game's just a blowout right away. I don't know. It's a weird strategy, but I think that could work. And obviously, if Giannis is out, that's going to help. But let's move on to the next game. We got the Suns versus the Knicks. 3.5 point spread, 220.5 or so. 219.5 is the over and under. I kind of expected to get to 220. But looking at right now, guys, the Knicks, they're going to be good to go. Okay. Kevin Durant, currently game time decision. Bradley Beal's out. We know that. So Devin Booker, if he is active in this game with Kevin Durant off the court, he is going to have a high usage rate. And so I pull up the injury report on DraftKings here. We are going to see, currently a game time decision. So we don't know exactly what to expect from him, but if he were to sit, I would expect Devin Booker to simply just go off like he did in the last game, guys. He crushed it. Yes, not a terrible matchup against Memphis, probably a little bit more difficult matchup against New York, but all in all, I would expect him to have a good game again. And so when we're looking at the props that we're getting, I'm probably am going to bet Booker for the over here, and I might even do Yusuf as well. And so just looking at the data with with Beal and Kevin Durant out the court, Devin Booker averages 37.2 points per 36, 6.3 rebounds, 7.6 assists, 1.3 steals, and tack on 0.7 blocks. So in total, a block and a steal per 36. Averages 22 shot attempts, usage rate of 40%, and he averages about 58 fantasy points per 36 with them off the court. So all in all, I do think Booker is someone we would want to be looking at. And then minutes-wise, we see Grayson Allen, Jordan Goodwin, and then Eric Gordon. I want to call it Eric Gordon because he is someone that has the next biggest usage rate at about 30%. So he is someone that should get a bump as well. He averages 25.3 points per 36. And I guess the thing with Eric Gordon would be the minutes. And we can see last game with KD off the court, he had the minutes, had the shot attempts. And so this is another one of those situations. And I'm perfectly fine doing this in NBA where we're betting on a situation. If Kevin Durant sits, we would be gaining a huge edge with some of the prop bets that are available right now. And so we look at Yusuf Nurkic as well. I just want to see the minutes. He did get 32 minutes in that game. Now, it's not a good matchup, but all in all, he's someone that you would expect to probably score a little bit more buckets in this game, still have the rebounds, still probably have the assists, still probably have a productive day fantasy score-wise as well. All in all, they all get a bump. I still like Devin Booker probably the most here. And the thing with Booker is he can get there even if Kevin Durant is active. But yes, if we get that news that Durant is sitting, hustle on over. Bet on Devin Booker to have a good game. If Eric Gordon's available, bet on him. You could also do Yusuf Nurkic, like I said, didn't have the points last game, but all in all, you would think he would get a little bit more points in this game. Granted, it is a more difficult matchup. And so we look at the Knicks, and we're not exactly getting that many good props for them. All in all, probably just a situation to stay away from right now, especially with everyone being healthy for this game. So we go ahead and take a peek at the next game that we have. We got the Hornets versus the Magic, about a 7-point spread, so kind of ugly there. 227.5 for the over and under. Taking a peek at the injury report. Again, for the Magic, the same players are expected out, Carter and Markelle Fultz. Tough to really gain an edge there at all. And then we look at Charlotte. We're probably not getting that many props for them right now. Nick Richards being out is interesting, but we need to get news on PJ Washington and Terry Rozier. And when I look at it, we are currently expecting Rozier to play, and also PJ Washington. PJ Washington has been someone that's been coming off the bench. And so with those players back, that just throws a big wrench into all the Charlotte Hornets. And to me, I'm probably just staying away. All in all, I do think Charlotte, they should have a good game in this game. Mark Williams is probably going to have a good game. The minutes should be there for him, especially with Nick Richards still out. PJ Washington coming in off the bench, I do like, but that just makes the situation probably one that I just want to stay away from. Now, can LaMelo Ball still have a good game? Yes. Can Mark Williams still have a good game? Yes. His over rebounds, I think I'd be fine with maybe in a game stack, but all in all, profits that we're getting this game do feel probably too thin with everyone being back for the first time all season, and we really haven't seen this lineup in over 2 years now. So yeah, I don't want to touch it right now. Granted, could be the wrong move because this is probably the lowest lines we'll get on some players, but all in all, it just seems like a wait and see approach. And so we are seeing that Goga for under rebounds is one that's currently popping up right now, and I'm perfectly fine betting that. That is seemingly a very good EV bet that we have. And also Jalen Suggs for under rebounds as well. Let's just take a peek at all 4 of these that we're getting for rebounds, because we can see the data is maybe a little bit, I don't want to say skewed, but it's just strange that we're getting that many rebound props. So let's just take a peek at those. And so with Suggs, he does average about 4 on the season. I would say the line that we're getting is probably correct. More times than not, he's not going to get over that, especially right now. So I'd be fine betting the under there, knowing that more likely than not, it's probably going to be a push. Then we look at Goga. So Goga is very much minutes dependent, his production is. And so we can see when he gets 30 minutes, yeah, he's crushing, okay? Even still, at 7.5, the line that we're getting on him is probably too low, especially if the Hornets are going to be, win this game by at least 7 points. Chances are that Orlando's not going to get their final rotation or a full allotment of their final rotation. So someone like Goga could actually see maybe instead of 32 minutes, closer to 27 minutes. And if that happens, yeah, I would see it being difficult for him to get 7 0.5 rebounds to get that over. So I'm fine with that. Then we see Banchero there as well. He has been playing better, and I'm probably just not touching the rebounds prop with him. But again, on the season, he's not averaging 7.5 rebounds. So we are seemingly getting some pretty good lines there rebounds-wise. So if you want to bet those, by all means, go for it. I probably will run out some sort of weird game stack there rebounds-wise with them. And I probably would do Mark Williams for over rebounds then. If I'm doing that, if I'm betting these guys under, I'm probably doing Mark Williams over rebound. So we move on to the next game. We got the Hawks versus the Celtics, another game that has the potential to be a blowout, 7.5 point spread, 236.5 for the over and under. Looking at the injury report, Jalen Johnson currently out. That's a big one. He left yesterday's game, and so with him being out, that's going to change a lot of things. And then also, Kristaps Porzingis is going to be out in this game. Drew Holiday currently a game time decision. We take a peek at the injury report. We are going to see that Holiday is truly a game time decision. So let's start out with the Hawks. I had what felt like a bad beat. I had a couple of lines yesterday where DeAndre Hunter under fantasy score was one that was really popping. At one, 5 out of 6 with Hunter getting the over fantasy score. That was unfortunate. And then one, 3 out of 4. Actually, I had a few that were like 3 out of 4 or 1 for 2 with Hunter and getting the over. And that felt somewhat like a bad beat with Jalen Johnson getting injured because he's just the natural replacement for him. But I want to see if that actually is true. So with Jalen Johnson off the court, it is Hunter that gets the second most minutes. He gets a 1.7 bump in usage, but about a 6 bump in fantasy score. So yes, seemingly was a little bit of a bad beat there. Minutes wise, Bay actually gets the most minutes heavily, and then DeJounte Murray, and then the starters pretty much. So Onyeka Okongwu, some of that could actually get a slight bump in minutes. Maybe gets like 25, 27 in this one. That's not going to see a big difference. The biggest mover is actually Bay, which I would say does make sense. His per 36 production is 14.7 points, 8 rebounds, 1.3 assists. So really not too far off from this game log from against Washington. And so if the game does stay close enough for long enough, not a terrible one. I don't know if we're getting any prop bets for Atlanta just yet, other than Trae Young. Let's take a peek. And so we are seeing Trae Young for over points, rebounds, and assists. They seemingly like Trae Young in this matchup. And I would say, if Drew Holiday's out, that's only going to help Trae Young out. But all in all, we're not getting the other props until we get Jalen Johnson news. So that makes sense. And then also, we're probably not going to get any more props as well until we get news on Drew Holiday, because he does kind of shift how this game would function. Let's take a peek at the Boston Celtics. So we know that Porzingis is going to be out. And so just with Porzingis off the court, we actually see Peyton Pritchard get the most minutes, then Sam Hauser. So we could see those two kind of step up. And for what it's worth, like their minutes probably will be around 30 or so. Pritchard per 36 production is 12.4 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. So, points, rebounds, and assists. Maybe we're looking at him, especially in a game that could be a blowout. He would be someone that still should get those minutes. And same thing for Sam Hauser. His per 36 production is 19.5 points, 4.6 rebounds, 1.3 assists. So again, those two are two players that are going to get some shot attempts up. They're going to get a little bit of an increase in usage. The minutes are the biggest thing there. Who benefits the most usage-wise, though, with Porzingis off the court in terms of who's going to get minutes? It's actually Derek White. Has a 8.4 bump in usage and about 6.6 more fantasy points per 36. Then Sam Hauser, 8.3 bump in usage, 11 fantasy points per 36. Don't know if we can bank on Hauser getting those minutes. And then Tatum gets a 5.9 bump in usage to about 2.3 more fantasy points per 36. So his per 36 production with Porzingis off the court is 30 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists. So basically, they might actually be overvaluing Tatum a little bit too much, but granted, given the matchup, you probably would give him a slight bump. And so I see where they are coming out with that line. It does make sense to me. Can we be buying the over? Sure. Would he get a bigger bump if Drew Holiday were to be ruled out? Yeah, he would. And so if Drew Holiday sits, he averages almost 32 points per 36, 8 rebounds, and 2.7 assists. So a slight bump, but a significant enough bump for us to maybe want to be going in on this prop. All in all, I don't think I want to touch Jaylen Brown. I think Derek White's going to be the biggest beneficiary with someone like Porzingis off the court. Granted, we don't have any props, but more likely than not, the lines that we're going to get on him are going to be similar to his averages. And so I would say he probably gets a slight bump in his points, maybe a bump in his rebounds, maybe a bump in his assists, but all in all, the points would be the biggest thing I would want to go in. And then again, Sam Hauser, Payne Pritchard, they're going to get some benefits as well. But let's go ahead and move on to the next game. Next game, we got the Timberwolves versus the Grizzlies. Another game, potential blowout, 6.5 point spread, kind of a low scoring game at about 218 or so for the over and under. Looking at the injury report right now, Timberwolves, still somewhat kind of healthy-ish. Looking at Memphis, they are still pretty banged up. So you got Luke Kennard out, Marcus Smart out, Tillman out, and so they are very much banged up, the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, one of the biggest or the best prop bets that we actually had was Rudy Gobert for under fantasy score. And I find that one fascinating. I want to look into that a little bit more. And so we can see the average sportsbook line has this set at 31. And fair warning, for someone like Rudy Gobert, it could just be a situation where we're not getting as many blocks and steals props pulled in from all the sports books. And so maybe, for instance, maybe DraftKings Sportsbook is not saying he's going to get a lot of blocks and steals, or he's not likely to. And then maybe FanDuel comes in and kind of says the opposite. That could change this data, but it's not going to change it too much. Like the highest I think it would go is actually at 34, but we'd still probably see the data be favoring the under then. The projection data does like the over, so a little bit of caution there, but let's just take a further look at. And so we have seen Gobert kind of struggle recently. The minutes have been there for him. That's been great, but he has not been in the overs as much recently. And really the production hasn't fallen off too much. And so the line that we're getting here, I think, is just a reflection of the matchup. But all in all, we saw that the matchup here could actually be a more difficult one. So yeah, I could probably get behind Ben the under there. And then we also see Mike Conley is a pretty good bet for his over fantasy score. And this is seemingly a pretty good line as well. I hope I don't have a bad beat on Mike Conley. The last time Mike Conley was a bet for over fantasy points, he didn't get a single data point for the last 8 minutes of the game. It was extremely tilting. Just needed 2 points from him, and he didn't get that, or 2 assists from him. He didn't get that. He actually ended up getting an assist before the game got a blowout, and it was just tilting. It was so close to getting the over. Anyways, yeah, this is a good matchup for him. You would expect him to be able to go out and at least get the over fantasy score, as long as he's getting a decent amount of assists, as long as he's meeting his probably averages for steals and then assists as well. Really, if he's just meeting all of his averages in this matchup like you think he would, he should be able to get his over fantasy score. And we can see lately he has been getting there. And again, this is a little bit of a better matchup. Let's go ahead and take a peek at Memphis. For what it's worth, Towns is okay for fantasy score. Anthony Edwards probably a little bit too high. But yeah, let's go ahead and take a peek at Memphis. So Memphis-wise, Jaren Jackson Jr. under fantasy score. That is something that I do think makes sense given the matchup with Minnesota. This is seemingly a matchup that we don't want to target bigs against. And so that is something that to me makes sense. And he is someone that, is prone to get into foul trouble. And that, I think that'd be more the bet, is that you're betting on him to get in foul trouble going against Gobert, going against Towns. And if that happens, we'll see his minutes be limited. And so to me, I think that it's a slate as that's something you can bet on there. And then maybe Senti Aldama gets a little bit more run. He has been someone that has been playing a bunch. I was kind of hoping that we begin some props on him. We're not. I don't know if we are going to get any. It is a football Sunday. You never know for sure which props you're going to get. And then all Desmond Bane, I probably don't want to touch as well. So let's just go ahead and move on to the next game here. We got Toronto versus Cleveland, about a 1.5 point spread. So a good game there, a 220.5 for the over and under. So maybe we have some good props here. Marcus Noel, game time decision. We're not worried about that. And we're not really worried about anything there for the Raptors. Looking at Cleveland, not too much. Dean Wade, he does play about, he gets more run when people are injured, but we're not worried about him. The biggest news would be Darius Garland. So when we look at it, he is currently in the starting lineup. That could change. Obviously, if he sits, we're going to see Donovan Mitchell get a bump. We're going to see Max Strus get a bump. And we're probably going to see Karis LeVert get a bump as well. LeVert could shift to the starting lineup as well. And so they did have a game on Saturday, only played 14 minutes in that game. And so to me, that probably is telling me that he's going to sit again in this game. Now, it was the front end of a back-to-back. That could be the reason as to why he sat. But at the same time, why risk it? He left that game. Give him time to heal up. Give him time to be ready to go. So let's just prepare ourselves for him to sit. And I'm not sure if we're going to get it massive. We're not even getting any Cleveland props just yet because of that. But let's just go ahead and prepare ourselves for if he sits. Who would we want to be looking? So yes, if Garland sits, Max Strus is something that gets a bump. LeVert gets a bump. Donovan Mitchell gets a bump. Talking about usage, Jonathan Mitchell gets a bump of 5.5% of usage. The fantasy points don't go up too much, but he does average 1.6 more points per 36. So, a little bit more. About 2 more rebounds, actually. So that would be maybe something you could look at. Interesting there. Max Strus averages about 1.2 more shot attempts, but not actually doing too much with it. Ty Jerome would be a beneficiary, but he's out, obviously. Karis LeVert, decent as well, but he's too much of a hit or miss. So maybe just Mitchell, but all in all, it doesn't seem like we had that many good props there. So let's take a peek at Toronto. And so for Toronto, the props that we were getting are okay. We have a few that are 53% likely to hit, but, I typically don't like to use any prop bets that are under 54% likely to hit unless we're doing the game stacks. So maybe Dennis, you could run out there for over points. Pascal Siakam, that feels a little bit too thin. I don't like the matchup with Cleveland as well. So let's just take a peek at the next game that we're getting. So we got the Bulls versus the Nets, 4.2 for the spread, 216.5 or so for the over and under. Looking at right now, Nick Claxton game time decision. Then we still know that Ben Simmons and Cam Thomas are out. Looking at as well, we have a lot of big news for the Bulls. Caruso game time decision, Zach LaVine a game time decision. Let's take a peek at that report. So for the Bulls, LaVine expected to play. Caruso, definitely a game time decision. Nick Claxton actually expected to play now, so good to know. Nick Claxton has been someone that, when he has gotten the minutes, has been playing pretty darn well. even when he hasn't gotten the minutes, has been playing pretty darn well. I think in this matchup against Chicago, I probably don't mind it. Like, Vucevic has not been too big of a presence underneath thus far this season, so I'm hoping we're getting some good props for him. We're not getting any just yet, but all in all, maybe we could use him in a game stack. Seeing it right now, the only one that we're getting that's truly a good one is looking at Mikal Bridges for under 9.5, 4 rebounds and assists. We can see it 9 in the last game, so under there. Got the over against Atlanta, but for the most part, has consistently been mostly getting 9. It just depends on really his rebounds in this game. And all in all, it does seem be a little bit tough to predict. Cam Johnson is someone that's been having good games as well when he gets the minutes. So yeah, Brooklyn's been a little bit more difficult to predict. We see Finney Smith for points, 8.5, seemingly a good edge compared to both Underdog and PrizePicks. Like, that's a 1 point difference between PrizePicks and Underdog. We can see that the average line has it set at 9, but the projection data likes at 8. So that's probably a better under bet on Underdog there, guys. DFS under 9.5 points. We rarely get that. And so it's a small middling opportunity as well. Like, that's a pretty big difference. When it's 1 point difference between PrizePicks and Underdog, that's huge. So not bad, especially for a guy like Finney Smith who's not scoring a lot. Like, that's a big difference. So if you want to roll with that, you can. Then for some reason, I'm assuming it's because of LaVine. We're not getting any props just yet. All in all, players haven't really benefited too much with LaVine being out. And maybe it's actually the Caruso nose that we're mostly waiting on, because Caruso, in a weird way, elevates like Patrick Williams a little bit, Kobe White. And so maybe that's why we're not getting it just yet. All in all, let's move on to the next game. I don't want to touch on like per 36 production with him off the court, because it doesn't shift too much for Zach LaVine, at least in terms of production. We just haven't seen that, which is a little bit strange. Like, the biggest beneficiary to Caruso being out or LaVine being out is actually Patrick Williams, and I don't want to bet on Patrick Williams. He's a little bit too hit or miss. So then we get into the last game of the slate. A blowout potential. Denver 11.6 favorites. That's crazy. And then 228.5 for the over and under. Looking at it, we do know that KCP game time decision, Aaron Gordon game time decision, Reggie Jackson game time decision, Jokic game time decision. So I doubt we're getting props for this. Maybe we're getting let's see here, Michael Porter Jr. That might be it. And so yes, we are currently only getting Michael Porter Jr. props. Now, I do want to take a peek at the injury report. Like, everyone is expected to play. And what I mean by we're only getting Michael Porter Jr. props, like the only really favorable ones. And so is under fantasy score here at 32. If they all play, is a good one. It's a little bit risky, because if anyone sits, I would imagine he would get a bump, especially if Aaron Gordon sits. Then you can just lock him into a little bit more minutes. If Jokic sits, you definitely want to be betting the over. So the fact that they're all projected to play, I guess I'm okay with. At the same time, a little bit concerning. We do see KCP is another one for under fantasy score, a seemingly decent one. Aaron Gordon under fantasy score. Let's just take a peek at those. So Michael Porter Jr., literally the last few games, a little bit lucky. I did get lucky on this one because he's been favored for the under fantasy score for quite some time. And with this game potentially being a blowout, you do worry about those minutes being there for him. And so I could see betting the under there. Aaron Gordon got injured in his last game, I believe. But he's been someone that's been struggling to get the over. And then we look at KCP. He had himself a game in the last game, but he is certainly hit or miss. So like, you could potentially run a little bit of a game stack out with all those players for the unders. Then you probably would be looking at Jokic for the over. Then I would say that has a pretty heavy correlation there. Then we take a peek at the Spurs for this game. All right, so for the Spurs, we have Zach Collins for under 6.5 rebounds for a seemingly good EV bet, and then Keldon Johnson for under 54 for a fantasy score, another seemingly good bet. I mean, let's take a peek at both of these. So Zach Collins, I think the biggest worry with him would be, getting into foul trouble going against Jokic. I think that is a very good concern. Now, he is someone that can be prone to fouls, and that will limit his minutes as well. All in all, he does average around 6.4. When he gets more minutes, when the game stays close, he'll get a little bit more run and thus get the over. But all in all, I think this is a good EV bet that we're getting 6.5 for under rebounds. Projection data likes it as well. Then Keldon Johnson for under fantasy score as well. That's something that probably correlates pretty well with the other ones getting their unders, because it's just saying that the game's going to blow out. These players are not going to get the typical run that they would. So Keldon Johnson, though, is someone that even in games that have been blowouts will still get around 30 minutes. But if it's being a blowout, he's going to be part of the reason as to why. Like, if they're struggling, he's going to be a big reason as to why. Now, he has been someone that's been playing better as of recent, so I don't know if I exactly want to touch that. But all in all, it's Denver, much more difficult matchup than it. I mean, look at the last few. Kings, higher scoring pace-up spot. Memphis, you're not too worried about that. Clippers, you're not too worried about them right now. Even Golden State, you're not too worried about them. So really hasn't had a difficult matchup in quite some time now. Miami did play well against. Minnesota didn't play well against. So not really the best sample size all in all. If you want to just trust the data blindly here, I'm fine with that. So then just touching on some other prop bets that we have. Again, I do think that the Connor McDavid one is probably one of my favorite ones. 54% chance that I'm perfectly good with that one. The chances are that could be bumped. So, don't love that. Another good one is Johnny for over 2 shots on goal, seemingly a good one there. David Perron for over shot attempts is seemingly a good one there as well. So we are getting a decent amount of good NHL props. But yeah, to me, the best one that we're currently getting is going to be the Connor McDavid one. I do want to take a peek at some other ones that we have out there. Discrepancy wise, nothing too crazy. Nothing too crazy. Take a peek at college basketball. So college basketball wise, not too many EV bets here. I mean, none at all. So, probably just to stay away. Let's just double check that for underdog as well. You never know. A couple of decent ones. Then NFL, I did come out with an NFL video. So let's just go back into these again. Like, I don't know if I trust these too much. It's crazy how heavily a lot of these unders are being favorited right now. Like, we got to scroll for quite a while to get to the over. So a little bit ugly there. Let's go on and get into the bet of the day. All right. So looking at the bets for today, not my favorite slip ever. Okay, I don't love the fact that we're betting a lot of unders. You guys know I typically like to bet the over. And so if you wanted to do just that, Mike Conley over fantasy score. I think Damian Lillard over fantasy score, going against Portland. I think there's something to that. If Giannis were to sit, that's going to be appealing to me as well. Then we also saw a Sharp for over fantasy score. He's someone that should be locked into his minutes. I do think there's a little bit of a game stack opportunity for Portland. They probably want to play well against Lillard as well. All these are the best props that we have available on the board. I did not use the 2 Milwaukee Bucks props with both Brook Lopez and then also Malik Beasley. Just there is a slight chance Giannis could sit, and then those two we would actually be gaining edge by betting the over. So probably just to stay away. I don't really love those. And then for the rest of these, I think the hope for Michael Porter Jr. is that this game's a blowout, and that's why he doesn't get a little bit of extra run that he would need to get the over fantasy score. Rudy Gobert, I think it's more of a matchup thing. Aiden could get into foul trouble. Zach Collins could get into foul trouble. That's really what we're hoping for with these two. Goga is someone that also can get into foul trouble, but Mark Williams, we're just hoping that he gets over his 9.5 rebounds because we did see a lot of the Orlando props were actually favored for the under rebounds there. Again, these lines can shift throughout the day. We may be seeing these lines get bumped. We may be seeing the EV that we had on these, get a slight bump down to maybe 53% likelihood. But all in all, these are currently the best prop bets. That's the thing with NBA. It's not like any other sport where like golf, MLB, NFL, like stuff typically doesn't change too much hour to hour. Whereas NBA, obviously you guys know that it typically does. You can get lucky with injury news. You can get unlucky with injury news. All in all, I would say probably been a little bit too unlucky injury news wise. So soon here, maybe this week, we have a little bit of a bump in the luck in terms of injury news this weekend. Hopefully we get that today. But that is going to be all for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to hit a like and subscribe to the channel as well. Hit the notification bell so you're not missing out on any of the great content here. If you guys want access to the cheat sheet, both Underdog and PrizePicks, it is available for just $10 a month. You guys will see that I will have, nope, it's this way. I will have the video down there, like how to use the tools, how to have a profitable slate as well. Check that out. Thanks for watching. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing.